Jesus.
In today's video, we are heading out to BNSF's Cajon Sub and Needles Sub out in the Mojave Desert. We would get up at around and leave not too long later. After a pit stop in Paris for some hot chocolate, we made it to San Bernardino just before sunrise. We end up seeing our first train on Interstate 15, which was just a 4x0 intermodal with a GEVO leading. We'll see this later in Newberry Springs. After making it to Cajon Pass, we would see our first train immediately. We would end up chasing this thing down to the Swarthout Canyon Road railroad crossing.
Proceed to the route. Proceed to the route.
Our first train of the day would have BNSF 6619 leading, heading westbound. We would then head back to the original spot we were going to go to first, which would be the Santa Fe Fire Road railroad crossing. Upon arriving, we would see another westbound 3x0 port stack intermodal, this time having an SD70 Ace leading. The train would end up just stopping short of a crossing for two trains, which we will mention pretty soon. Funny enough, BNSF 8532, which is leading the westbound port stack intermodal, ended up having a K3 LA instead of the usual K5 LLA. Here's a sample of it before stopping just short of a crossing. 20 minutes after BNSF 8532 stopped, Amtrak Southwest Chief No. 3 heading to Los Angeles passed through the crossing with P42DC No. 5 leading. This train ended up being an hour and 52 minutes late. The second train we would see would be an eastbound Z train with BNSF 6785 leading. This also ended up having a fake bonnet fourth out. As soon as the eastbound Z train passed, BNSF 8532 departed. So we were gonna leave, and then this thing shows up. As we were trying to leave Cajon Pass for our next spot, which would be Helendale, an eastbound Union Pacific manifest on the faraway track passed through. No clue what the number was. After that, we would head down to Helendale. On our way down, we saw a westbound BNSF port stack near Oro Grande. We would then finish our trip down to Helendale and see our first train at Helendale not too long later. This ended up being a westbound Q train. This ended up having BNSF 6533 leading. Our next train would be a BNSF eastbound Autorack, this having BNSF 5227 leading with a very nice K-free L. Not even 5 minutes later, we would see our next freight train, this being a westbound Union Pacific coal train coming from Utah, this having UP 3034 leading, one of 90 Tier 4 ACES. Not even another 5 minutes later, we would see another train, this being an eastbound BNSF Z train, having BNSF 7506 leading. not even 2 minutes later, I would be jump scared by the westbound Dago, this having BNSF 7163 leading.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the f*** is that?
Not even another 5 minutes later, and we already have another train. God, I need to live out here someday. This ended up being an eastbound BNSF Port Stack Intermodal, this having BNSF 6511 leading. Unsurprisingly, another train came not too long later. This ended up being the same eastbound Z train we saw earlier in Cajon Pass. No need to introduce him, he's already been introduced. While heading to our next spot, which would be Newberry Springs, we stopped just short of Newberry Springs. This was due to a BNSF manifest coming rapidly fast. Since we would never make it to our spot in time, we just decided to stop short of Newberry Springs. This manifest, which was bound for Barstow, ended up having BNSF 7819 leading. It ended up also meeting the Z train we just saw earlier in Helendale and Cajon Pass. As both trains were ending, something interesting was on the end of the manifest. Take a look. Yeah, since BNSF is starting to retire their SD70 Max, me and my grandpa decided to give in chase. heading back to Newberry Springs, we get distracted by yet another train, this being a westbound port stack intermodal with BNSF 7438 leading. This ended up having a really nice crew on it too. After the port stack intermodal, we headed down to the Newberry Road Railroad crossing. Our first train there would be the intermodal we first saw in the morning at San Bernardino. This eastbound Z train ended up having BNSF 7614 leading, while going 70 miles an hour, I think. Our next train would be an eastbound manifest coming out of Barstow Yard, this having BNSF 7534 leading. Our next train would be an eastbound port stack intermodal not too long after the eastbound manifest, this having BNSF 6511 leading. Our next train would be yet again another eastbound manifest coming out of Barstow, this having BNSF 6037 leading with an amazing sounding K5HLA. It also had an H1-94 valve. Our final train of the day would be a westbound manifest heading to Barstow with BNSF 5850 leading. This ended up having a fake bonnet 4th out. After that, we decided to head down to Barstow for lunch. While on the way, we saw the same train again, so we decided to make a pit stop just outside of Daggett to see it one more time. After that, we decided to head down to the Barstow station. No, not the Amtrak one, but the station that has a McDonald's in it that has train cars for some reason, so that was cool. I also decided to go exploring around and took some pictures. And while heading outside, I saw this port stack intermodal heading eastbound. No clue what the leader was though. I then decided to head down to the real Barstow station and got some pictures of the museum equipment, including the precious speed. While there was a yard job switching out Barstow Yard with an SD40-2 and a slug. I then decided to check out Barstow Yard and saw some hump yard action. Unfortunately, there wasn't really many interesting locomotives, just some fake bonnets in view. While leaving Barstow for Victorville, I saw a BNSF manifest departing Barstow heading westbound. This ended up heading down to West Colton Yard, and it also has a -9 leader, so I decided to give him chase. It also met this manifest that was pulling into Barstow Yard. No clue where it originated though. Eventually we pulled over to the side of the road so we could pace it. After that, we saw a stopped eastbound grain train, with just a G-Vale leading. While pulling into Victorville, we saw a Union Pacific manifest already passing through, and I barely caught it. I ended up catching the DPU at the station. And immediately after the Union Pacific manifest, I saw H-Bar Watt, this having BNSF 8249 leading, with a great crew on it. Our next train we would see would be the H-Bar WCL, the same train we were pacing not too long earlier. This had BNSF 4549 leading, and it ended up having a P3. Right before leaving Victorville, we would see one last train, this being a westbound Z train with BNSF 3731 leading. After that, I decided to call it a day. So if you excuse me, I'm gonna go pet a cat now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.